Isn't life easy? Never any hard times? Always carefree? No? My life isn't, if my life is like that. Life is not like that. Life can be hard. Life can be difficult. Lots of tough times in life. But we have hope. We have the message of Jesus Christ. And I get to keep that message to myself and not give it to anybody else because I am the only one deserving of hope. Is that true? Preach? No, that is not true. The message of hope of Jesus is not for just me. Who is it for? This weekend, Berean Baptist Church, we are supposed to be a beacon for our community. To shine. I'm tired. I got a lot of sunburn on my neck. It affects the brain. It goes up through the neck and into the brain. So, to shine the hope of Jesus to this community. God opens incredible doors. This weekend, because we do the pack nights, the reason we do that is to get into our schools and have Jesus be there through us. On Friday night, we had a group of people, a small group, that were able to go and represent Berean Baptist Church at Hawthorne Elementary. Over 500 people came through and by that we got to love on as a church. They represented us, and they represented Jesus. Over 500 people. Yesterday, 631 people walked in front of our building, and we got to love on each one of them as they came through. And we got to talk to them in the gymnasium. We got to talk to them at the exit through our prayer table, our Spanish Connection table. 631 people. How many of those people did Jesus die for? I'm not good at math, and my brain's probably not working well this morning. But that's over 1,100 people that Berean got to show a little bit of love of Jesus to. That is yes, not everybody could be here. But I want to take a moment because it can't be done by one person. That was a lot of work. A lot of planning that went into that. And sacrificing time of over 5 hours that you came out and helped. And I want to just take a minute and honor you and thank you. If you came out yesterday and served, would you stand to your feet, please? Thank you. And I know there's others, and I know some of you wanted to be here and couldn't be here because of other life circumstances. But thank you. I'm more blessed than those people probably were. It's more blessed to give your time to love on people. So many conversations of people that were new to the community, people that are looking for community, people that are looking for hope. There's people going through really tough stuff, tough times. and we got to just share a little bit of Jesus. That's what this place is supposed to be, is a light and a beacon of hope to a world. Those doors are open doors. This is not us four and no more. This is not a cruise ship. This is not a country club. This is a battleship with a mission to reach the lost. And enough is never enough. Every person out there Jesus died for. I will not stop until we get the gospel to every single person. And then the ones that say no, we'll go back to them again, and we'll get the gospel to them again. Because Jesus is not just for me. Who is Jesus for? Live a life of perseverance. It's hard. Life's hard. So many people are going through so many stuff, and I know you're going through something. I'm going through something. How do we keep going? How do we keep about the mission? How do we not lose focus of what we're supposed to be doing and who we're supposed to be representing and how we are supposed to be representing Him? I'm really sad to be concluding Acts next week. And today we're going to tackle a lot of verses, so that's why we didn't put a time on for our Connect class. 2 o'clock. Everyone dies, but not everyone truly lives. How do you live? You know and you follow Jesus. If you don't follow Jesus, you don't live. If you don't know Jesus, you don't live. There's only life through Him. There's only hope through Him. That's been this whole last 2 months that we've been talking about. You live by knowing Him and following Him. Why? Because Jesus only leads to life. Sin leads to death. Who's sinned? Me and Sharon. Everybody. We all need hope. We all need life. And it's only possible because of Jesus. Perseverance when the tough times come. This is what perseverance is defined as. It says continued effort to do or achieve something despite difficulties or opposition. Now, I don't believe that definition fully works for the Christian life because it excludes something very important. And I know you're not going to want to hear this. I came to church to be uplifted. Well, at the end, I'll uplift you, but I got to get you there to where you need to be lifted up. And I know it's probably not going to feel good, but listen, I'm saying it to myself. Your effort is not enough. My effort is not enough. Can I get real with you? Every single Sunday, I'm standing here and saying, God, what are you doing? I'm not enough. But God. He didn't leave me as not enough. He gave me Jesus. And when I stand here, I don't stand in my own strength, but I stand in the power of God, completely trusting Him. Because I'm not enough. But with Jesus, I expect great things. Because I know how big He is. Who was in a Sunday school class this morning? God being omnipresent. He exists outside of time. He is present right now in the past. He is present right now. Does that make sense? And he is present in the future. He created time and he exists outside of time. How great is your God? I cannot even fathom that he exists outside of his creation as he's created it. I'm not enough. I need him. We're not enough. We cannot continue. We cannot live without him. But we know that difficult times happen. I want to share one quote with you that you're probably familiar with. Tough times do not last, but tough people do. Don't be too quick to amen that. Y está en español también para los que hablan español. Los tiempos difíciles son pasajeros. Eso fue nuevo para mí. Pero la gente fuerte permanece. Sueña bien, pero no es conforme a la Biblia. It sounds good, but it is not biblical. You are not strong enough. I know that it might not hit you right, but you're not enough. Let me tell you something that is biblical. You ready? Tough times do not last. That part is true. But people with faith in the Lord do. Tough times do not last, but people with faith in the Lord do. Y de nuevo, para los que hablan español, los tiempos difíciles son pasajeros, pero la gente con la fe en el Señor permanece. You can outlast the tough times of life, and this passage gives us a little insight into how. Paul's message was always the risen Jesus. Always. We can live a life of perseverance to not stop following Jesus. Again, our vision at Berean Baptist Church is to make followers of Jesus. True followers of Jesus will not turn away from the faith. True followers of Jesus will not turn away from the faith. Not because we're strong, but because he sustains us and he keeps us. Acts 27 is an epic journey that Paul undertakes. It's one that should be on the big screen. Number one, how do we live a life of perseverance? We persevere knowing tough times will come. I know that is not revolutionary for you. But we persevere knowing tough times will come, sabiendo que vendrán tiempos difíciles. Tough times, spiritual and physical. Be prepared. Don't despair. Know that tough times will come. Has anybody never been through a tough time? Okay, so that's not a surprise to you then. We're going to look at a map. I'm going to throw a map. You already have that? Hopefully you have that already. Was anybody around in 58 AD? Okay, just wanted to make sure. I'll explain the map then. I got a little laser pointer. Ooh, fancy. So Paul is here, Caesarea, right in there. That's where he's beginning his journey. He's not beginning his journey alone. But they said, I want to go. I appeal to Caesar. So he begins his journey here, right in Caesarea. And we're going to see, as we go throughout this morning, time after time and storm after storm that he faces on this journey. Paul was given over to Julius, Roman centurion, and they're going to make several scheduled stops and several unscheduled stops. So we'll be referencing this throughout the morning. But let's look at the end of verse 2 of Acts 27, verse 2. I think this is just an important note. As Paul is in his journey, as Paul is in captivity, we see these three words, being with us. Being with us. Paul wasn't alone on this journey. Who is the us? Does anybody know? Who is included with Paul in his journey? Not God. God, yes, but physically a person. Who wrote Acts? Who said Luke? You get a gold star. Luke. Luke was with Paul on this journey. That's how he could report so accurately everything that happens. Now, he wasn't in captivity. He wasn't under arrest. He wasn't appealing to Caesar. Yet he went alongside Paul. If you're not the ones in captivity and you're not the ones that's being persecuted and you're not the one in chains, be next to the one that is. How easy would it have been for Luke to abandon him, say, I'm not going on that journey. That's going to be hard. I'm not in chains. But he stuck next to Paul's side and said, I'm going to go with you. That is so cool. Side note, that was. Verse 3, and the next day we touched at Sidon, which is right above Caesarea. It says, and Julius courteously entreated Paul. He was very kind to him and gave him liberty to go unto his friends to refresh himself. That was God's grace in his life. To let him go ashore, to let the other believers there encourage him. And feeling refreshed, feeling encouraged. You ever been refreshed and encouraged in life? And then what's right around the corner? Trouble. Just when you're feeling good, all right, we're going to go on this journey, I feel refreshed. And then we see in verse 4, and when we had launched from thence, they left from Sidon. We sailed under Cyprus. Why? Because the winds were contrary. As soon as they got out, there's these winds. There's these storms. There's these tough times. Let's put that up there again just so we can put some context. So they had to hug Cyprus. I cannot keep my hand still. Look at that. They had to hug Cyprus because the winds prevented them from going the route that they wanted to go. So they're hugging Cyprus. They go up by Cilicia, Pamphylia, to Myra. They stop. And they switch over from one ship that was from Alexandria. If you look down at the bottom of the map down here, you will see Egypt and Alexandria. So they find another ship that's going to help get them to Italy, to get them over to Rome. And it's very interesting as it goes on in verse 7. We're going to leave the map up there for right now so we can see. Now, that's not a long distance, is it? From Myra to Cnidus right here? Is that a very long journey? Could be. But it doesn't look yet, right? It looks like it should just be a couple days, few days, and we're there. But in verse 7, it says, and when we had sailed slowly many days and were scarce come over to Cnidus, the wind not suffering us, it said it took many days. It shouldn't take many days. And it took many days. Have you ever been on a boat before? Now, you know what it's like to be on a boat, right? It moves a little bit. Now, they had sturdy boats, but I'm sure they're not as sturdy as the boats that we've been on today. And just looking at the many days that it took to get from Myra to Cnidus, I cannot imagine. I would have thrown up 400 times. I don't do this well. So they're going through the ringer of life. And then it says, the wind not suffering us, we sailed under Crete. I feel like a weatherman doing this. The winds from the east. So they begin sailing. They wind up in Fair Havens. And that wasn't their planned destination, but they could not go across because the wind pushed them down. And so they wound up under Crete in a place called Fair Havens. Brutal storms. Remember, he's already captive. The storms and the tough times that Paul is going through, he's in chains, he's bound, he's captive, he's not free. He's on this boat. Many, many days of rough seas and rough storms. They lost so much time. The weather was more and more dangerous because of the season. Verse 9 talks about it being late in the fall. And so Paul tries to speak common sense, saying this is a terrible time to be going across the sea. Maybe we should wait here and let the season pass, and once the seas have calmed, he had some wisdom, but we don't always control all the circumstances in our life, do we? No. So everybody else says, I want to go to Phoenix. It's a little bit better harbor, but Paul says, we shouldn't go. It's a bad idea. We need to stay here. But they didn't listen to Paul, and they go from Fair Havens and they get pushed down under Cauda. Big northeaster comes. The ship was caught. Look at verse 15. It says when the ship was caught, because they had a momentary brief, the winds died down a little bit, and they said, we can make it. Let's go to Phoenix. There was a little window, and so they set sail to Phoenix, and this big northeaster comes and pushes them down. And they didn't make it. They didn't make it to Phoenix. It says, when the ship was caught and could not bear up into the wind, we let her drive. You know what that means? Let it go. Have you ever been in a tough time in life and all you can do is you can't control it anymore and you're just like, all right, here we go. Let's see where we wind up. That's what happens there. Let it ride. Chaos, storm after storm that Paul is going through. Circumstances in life, when they seem to be going okay, am I going to make it through? And then one thing happens and you get tripped up, and then one thing, and then another, and then another, and then another, and then it seems like it's complete chaos. I want to help give you a visual of what that may look like. Let's play that video. So I need you to imagine, we're going to use our imagination a little bit in this, that we're going to see all these cyclists. This is a good idea, right? No, probably not. It's starting out bad. Do we have any cyclists in here? None? A couple? So each one of these cyclists is an issue in your life and a problem in your life. And everything seems to be going, or not a problem in your life, but everything seems to be going okay. You're making it through. You're wondering, am I going to make it? Am I going to make it? Possibly, maybe, so smooth so far. And then one thing happens that throws everything into chaos. That goes on for 4 minutes. Does life ever feel like that? Sometimes it's been a week, and it looks like everything's going okay, and then one thing happens, and then the rest of it feels like it's out of control, and everything that can go wrong is going wrong. It's exactly what is happening here. In verse 16, it says, and running under a certain island, which is called Cauda, which we saw on the map, we had much work to come by the boat. They had great difficulty. They had to hoist the lifeboat that they were towing behind them aboard. Verse 17, and when they had taken up, they used helps. They had ropes that they put around the hull of the ship to help strengthen it. fearing lest they should fall into the quicksands. This isn't quicksand, they're just sandbars. They were afraid they were going to hit something. They strike sail and were so driven. They lowered the sea anchor to help slow the ship. They put the sails down. Verse 18, and we were being exceedingly tossed with a tempest. The next day they lightened the ship. They were so desperate. That's how they made their money. They started throwing cargo overboard. You know people are desperate when they're throwing their livelihood out the window, right? Yeah. These people are in the midst of an insane, tough time in life, and they are looking for everything they can do to save themselves. Verse 19, and the third day we cast out our own hands with the tackling of the ship. They began throwing the ship's gear over the side, doing anything they could to lighten the boat. In verse 20, and when neither sun nor stars in many days appeared, and no small tempest lay on us, they hadn't seen the sun or stars in days. In the midst of this crazy storm, all hope, now this is Luke writing, remember, all hope that we should be saved was taken away. They had lost all hope. They had given up. We're not going to make it through. This is it. Luke admits they all hope that they could be saved was gone. It can't get any worse. Do you ever feel like that? Oh man, it can't get any worse than it is right now. That's where they were. The storms, the tough times in life begin to pile up and pile up and pile up, and the weight gets heavier and heavier and heavier. How do we continue on? Number 2, first of all, know that tough times will come. And how do we continue on through the tough times? Number 2, we persevere through confidence in God. Confidence in God. Perseverando a través de la confianza en Dios. He is trustworthy. He is real. He is true. He has proven himself again and again and again. And so when God says he will do something, what will he do? He will do it. Do you believe that God keeps his promises? You can place your confidence in God because his promises are true, his word is real. He will preserve you to the end. Where was Paul's confidence? Verse 21, it says, but after long abstinence, this is saying that nobody had eaten for a long time. Paul stood forth in the midst of them and said, sirs, nobody ever says this, right? If you would have just listened to me, I tried to tell you. Anyway, Paul does that. He says, you should have hearkened unto me and not loosed or not left from Crete and to have gained this harm and loss. He said, you would have avoided all this damage and all this pain and all this loss if you would have just listened. Verse 22, he says, and now I exhort you, he says, have confidence, because I know who my God is. He says in verse 22, and now I exhort you to be of good cheer. How can you be of good cheer? They haven't gotten out of the storm yet. They're still in it. They haven't eaten for days. They don't even know where they're at. They would use the stars to realign themselves, and they can't see the stars. But he says what? Be of good cheer. For there shall be no loss of any man's life among you, but of the ship. He said, the ship's going to go down, just so you know. But your life will not be lost. Believer, we are on a rocky boat. if I may so make the analogy. This world seems chaotic. And let me tell you now, it's all going to burn. God's created a new earth. If that's news to you. I know you love your home. I know you love the Sandias. I don't know if they're still going to be there or not. God's creating a new earth. He's going to clean this whole thing up. Anyway. Verse 23, for there stood by me this night, Paul says, the angel of God, whose I am. The angel was of God, and I am of God. Who and whom I serve. He had confidence. He said, that is my God, and I serve him. And my confidence is in him, so you can be of good cheer, even though you're getting tossed around like you cannot believe, even though you've lost all hope. Let me tell you, there is reason for hope. Saying, fear not, in verse 24, fear not, Paul. Thou must be brought before Caesar. So was Paul fearing? Why did the angel tell him not to fear? He must have been afraid. Was he human? Anybody in here not? Who came from Roswell? We're all human. We all fear. In the midst of the storm, it is a natural reaction to fear. But God reminds him. How does God remind us? Through his word, through his spirit, through an unnatural peace that we get, through other believers, encouraging one another. God reminded him of the promise. He said, fear not, Paul, thou must be brought before Caesar. Remember, I have a purpose and plan for you. And until my purpose and plan for you is done, you're going to be okay. Keep your confidence in me. It says, and lo, God hath given thee all them that sell with thee. Oh yeah, and by the way, all those around you are going to be okay too. Wherefore, sirs, be of good cheer, for I believe God. Love that. Paul says, God said it, so I believe it. God said it, I believe it. Believer, do you believe God? I believe God, that it shall be even as it was told to me. Whatever God says, I have confidence in it. That doesn't mean that tough times will stop. Look what he says in verse 26. He says, howbeit we must be cast upon a certain island. He said, God said he's going to get us through, but he didn't say it's going to be easy. It's going to be a ride. It's going to be a roller coaster. There's going to be hard times that come, but God will get you through. Let's put the map up there again. 2 weeks later, remember they were going to sail from Fairhaven's here over to Phoenix, just a quick little jaunt. 2 weeks later, they were driven across the entire sea over to Malta. They didn't know where they were. But the sailors sensed that they were nearing shore. And so they drop a weighted line out. And they measured 120 feet, and they pull it back up. Short time later, they throw it out again, 90 feet. They're moving quick, and they know land is near, and they get afraid again. And they pull it up. They drop all their anchors out. And in verse 30, he says, the shipmen were about to flee the ship. They were afraid. After they had dropped the anchors, they just prayed. And it says that the shipmen were about to flee out of the ship when they had let down the lifeboat into the sea. They were all going to jump in that lifeboat and hope for the best. And then verse 31, it says, Paul said to the centurion and to the soldiers, except these abide in the ship, ye cannot be saved. He said, stay in here, because if you go out there, you're going to die. They finally listened to Paul. In verse 32, the soldiers cut off the ropes of the lifeboat and let her fall off. They let it go. And while the day was coming on, Paul besought them all to take meat. He said, you guys haven't eaten in 14 days. Try eating something. Have confidence in God. Don't worry. Don't fear. He said, this day is the 14th day that ye have tarried and continued fasting, having taken nothing. Wherefore I pray you to take some meat, for this is for your health. This is for your good. You need to do this. Do what is right, even though you're afraid. Have confidence in God, for there shall not an hair fall from the head of any of you. He says, God has got us. He has promised, and his promises are true. Rest, breathe, eat, and keep your confidence in the promises of God. God's got us. Just keep doing what you're supposed to be doing. In verse 35, and when he had thus spoken, he took bread, he gave thanks to God. They haven't got out of the storm yet. They're still in it. Thanking God for the food that was provided. Gives thanks to God in the presence of them all. When he had broken, he began to eat. He was living confidently following God. Trusting him. And then look in verse 36. Because one person trusted. Look how the attitudes changed of everybody else. It said in verse 36, then were they all of good cheer. And they also took some meat. They ate. One person that had confidence in God and followed God and trusted God and said, guys, God's got this. He's promised. Trust his promise. Don't doubt, don't fear, don't worry. Do what you are supposed to do and live confidently in God. And there were 276 other people on that boat. It says they were all of good cheer. Their attitudes had changed because of one person. Be that person. Be the one that lives confidently following God. Encourage others around you, even when you don't see the end. God will get you through. Trust him. He will preserve you to the end. You will not fall away if you are his. He has you. Live confidently in God. Then the boat was smashed up completely. Verse 42, Paul kept trusting. The soldiers' counsel was to kill the prisoners. All right, we got to swim to shore. We don't want the prisoners to escape. Let's kill them. But God, not the centurion, but the centurion, it says, willing to save Paul, kept them from their purpose. It was God's purpose to get Paul to Rome. He says, you will stand before Caesar. The purposes of man will not stand against the purposes of God. And God will even use centurions for his purpose, to save Paul. And he commanded that they which could swim should cast themselves first into the sea and get to the land, and the rest, some on boards, some are hanging on for dear life. Even if you're hanging on for dear life, keep hanging and live confidently. Sometimes it feels like we're just hanging on and we're about to let go. Remember who God is. And I'm going to bring it up again. We talked about it in Sunday school. Who is your God? The omnipresent and everywhere God who lives outside of time. Again, fathom that. Right now, God is in past, present, and future. He's not caught up in this moment. He's in every moment. That's who your God is. Live confidently in Him. He knows the beginning to the end. He created your heart. He knows your heart. And some on broken pieces of the ship in verse 44, and so it came to pass that they escaped all safe to land. Did God's promise be real? Was God's promise real? Does God keep His promises? Philippians 1:6, being confident of this very thing, that He who has begun a good work in you will complete it until the day of Jesus Christ. Takes us right to point number 3. How do we persevere? Persevere through faith in Jesus. Perseverando a través de la fe en Jesús. Persevere knowing tough times will come. Persevere through confidence in God. And persevere through faith in Jesus Christ. We must accept God's love proved through the sacrifice of His Son to be able to persevere. 2 Thessalonians 3:5, it says, may the Lord direct your hearts to the love of God and to the perseverance of Christ. It's not because of our strength, but His. 2 Corinthians 1:8, for we do not want you to be unaware, brothers. You're going to despair of life. There will be moments. Paul here is giving us one example in his own life. It doesn't mean we won't struggle when we follow Jesus. He said, we don't want you to be unaware, brothers, of the affliction we experienced in Asia, for we were so utterly burdened beyond our strength that we despaired of life itself. We don't persevere because of our own strength. 1 Corinthians 15:10, but by the grace of God I am what I am. And nobody has worked as hard as me. I worked harder than everybody else, but not me. It is God. It's not your strength. It will never be your strength. It is only the grace of God in your life. You are not strong enough. You are not enough. But God has not left you there. He has given you Himself. He has given you His Son. He has given you His Spirit. So with those things, you are enough. Hebrews 10:35, therefore do not throw away your confidence, which has a great reward, life. For you have need of endurance, so that when you have done the will of God, we are living, sharing the hope of Jesus Christ, you may receive what is promised. Life is promised. What a reward. Life and life eternal. For yet a little while, and the coming one will come. Jesus is coming, and He will not delay, but the just shall live by faith. And if he turns back, my soul has no pleasure in him. But we are not of those who turn back and are destroyed, but of those who have faith. Have faith in Jesus. Those who have faith in Jesus will not turn back because we have life. We are not like those who will be destroyed. To live, moving from death to life, you must have faith. To persevere, you must live by faith, not in your power, but trusting that He will work in and through you. Tough times do not last, but people with faith in the Lord do. You want to last, you want to make it through, you want to persevere, put your faith in Jesus Christ. There's your bottom line. What do you trust in? What is your confidence in? And where is your faith? Bow your heads and close your eyes.